We're going to log into the dashboard with the admin user, which is one of the default users when you first install the dashboard. And that admin user has a default dashboard of administrator. It also has a tab here for admin area. We're going to go into that where we can see the ability to maintain users, widgets, and dashboards. Let's go ahead and look at the user maintenance. Click here, we have a edit users icon, and we can see the user ID is admin, username is admin user, the default dashboard was administrator, and then we have roles. Roles are either administrator or user. By having a role of administrator, we pick up the admin area as one of the tabs when we first log in. You can also see here the ability to enter your password and to confirm the password. The passwords with the MV dashboard do not tie into your LDAP or to your system user configuration. They're simply what you put in here for a password is what is going to be that user's password. The user ID is not case sensitive, but the user password is case sensitive. Let's also go in and look at widgets. There's numerous widgets that came with the default system. I've got 3 here that I'm going to be showing as examples. I put them in the beginning so I don't have to go through searching for widgets. This D3 free has a type of FC3D pie. So what this is going to be is a pie chart. We click on it and we can see the pie chart. If we go down to dashboard license usage, we see that as a table as our type. Click on it, we can see we have an HTML table where we have column headings. If we had multiple rows on this, it would be just like a report where you've got your headings and you got your multiple rows with each column pertaining to what is in the column heading. We also have here a demo MS column. This is an FCMS column 2D type. That MS means it is a multi-series. If we look at it, we can see that for each month there are 4 separate columns. One pertaining to regular, one pertaining to mid-grade, one premium, and one ethanol. If we go over here and we do a edit the dashboard, or I'm sorry, edit the widget, we will see that it has a widget name of 3 demo MS column, and the actual subroutine, every widget has a subroutine, is sub.demo.ms column. The subroutines associated with widgets are stored in a file called mvdb.subs. The widgets themselves are stored in mvdb.widgets. The users are stored in mvdb.users. Dashboards represent one or more widgets that are normally accessible via tabs across the top of the user screen. If we go in, let's look at the chart demo one. Let's go back and look at what the presentation is of the chart demo. Here we have 5 separate widgets that are displayed in this one dashboard. We have 2 columns. The leftmost column is a width of 1. The rightmost column is a width of 2. There's a potential for 3 columns across a dashboard. Let's go back and look at what the admin area has for the dashboard in terms of its display configuration. We have the dashboard ID of chart demo, description of demonstration charts. We have a potential for 1 column, 2 columns, or 3 columns. In this case, we had the 2 columns. Under the allowed users, we have admin and guest have access to this, meaning that it will be available on their tab bar. If nothing is in there, every user will have this available on their tab bar. That's important to remember. If you have a lot of dashboards and you don't put in a user or allowed users, you're going to have all these dashboards that everybody can access. You can also have a dashboard accessible via drill down, and when that is the case, you wouldn't want to have it and allowed users. You'd only be able to get to it from a drill down. So you'd put in a dummy ID there and there that would keep a user from being able to have it available on their tab list. Theme is where you have your color scheme. In this case, we're using a theme 1. Down in the layout of the dashboard, we have a header and we have a footer. Both of those are a width of 1. Anything that goes in there is going to go across the entire dashboard. But we can see here in the area 1 and area 2 are those 5 widgets that made up the desired display for this dashboard. The leftmost area are 1 width widgets. The rightmost area are 2 width widgets. If we wanted to be able to put something additional into this dashboard, we would simply drag it across. So if this D3 free was to be now part of this dashboard, we just drag it over. We can put it into the header, we can put it into another spot in the area 2, we could put it down in the footer, but let's put it up in there in the header. Let's save it, go back over to the return to dashboard, and our chart demo now shows the D3 free in the top portion of the dashboard. Let's go back into the admin area, go into dashboards, go into chart demo, and let's delete it from there. If we exit, we're going to delete it and save it, and we're back to what our original format was. So that's it for maintaining dashboards. We are now going to show how easy it is to create a widget in a dashboard. If we go here into widgets and we do an add widget, let's call it our first widget. And we'll call it sub first widget. And we'll leave the users blank. Everybody will have access to it, but they're really going to get at it through a dashboard. So let's do the save and edit sub. And by doing the save and edit sub, it's given us the ability to pull in a template of a subroutine associated with the type of widget that we want to use. Let's call this a 2-column chart, 2D column chart. If we click on that, it's going to pull in the code that would be necessary to build a subroutine to support that type of a chart. Pulled in our subroutine name, your title here, so let's call this first widget. It did the type that we wanted, and we're going to give it a width of 3, meaning that it's going to be taking up the entire width of a dashboard. Now this one already has everything we need to accomplish populating of data. Now let's talk about the populating of data. Somebody using the dashboard is going to want quick results. You can go out and on the fly do all the calculations necessary to populate the widget, but what we've found to be the best case is to normally go out and pull in all the data and put it into a single record or single file where you can quickly get the display. If it's going to take longer than 10 or 15 seconds to accumulate the data, calculate it, and put it into the dashboard or the widget, then it's not really going to be very viable for the user. It's up to you how you want to do it. You can go out and do everything right on the fly. The examples we're going to be showing here in the demo, the data has been previously accumulated. We have a process at Zumasys where we have maybe 100 different reports that get parsed and data pulled out of those reports to put into a financials dashboard, and to run that process can take as long as 100 or as long as 10 minutes to accumulate all the data. So we run that about every half hour, 45 minutes, so we have a display that is relatively current. Up at the top of the dashboard we show when the last calculations were done, and the user gets an instantaneous display of the dashboard, but the real heavy lifting of accumulating all that data had been done in the background. In this case, down here at lines 39 through 42 is where the columns associated with the dashboard are going to actually be populated. It's pulling in now just dummy display, but it's going to give us the results on a dashboard. So this is all you'd need to do is just populate down here at 40 and 41 the data that you want into the columns, and you're going to have created a widget. So we're going to do a save up here at the top. We're going to compile it. It automatically did the compile catalog, and we have a viable widget. We go down here and we should see a first widget. If we go up and do a dashboard, add a dashboard, and we can use the same name. Just call it first widget. And we'll give it a one column. We'll say that it's accessible by admin, and we'll do default theme, and we're going to pull into the area 1, drill down here to our first widget, and drag it in. And save it. Now we have first widget as a dashboard. If we go back and return to the dashboard, we now have first widget as one of our tabs up across the top for the admin user. We click on it and we see a display of the dashboard. Now we could have customized it, we could have put in a caption, we could have put in the x-axis description, the y-axis description, and all that. But you can see how simple it is to make a dashboard. Let's also talk about some of the configuration functionality of the dashboard. If we go here into the Administrator tab, we can see a alternate logo image. If you wanted to change this logo for MV MultiValue Dashboard to be your own company logo, you would put the name of your logo into this location. If you want to know where the actual logo is to be stored, refer to the programmer's reference manual for the dashboard. There's also the ability to define what is going to be your default dashboard themes. There's the default theme, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you were to create a new dashboard and you had theme 2 as your default or your selected dashboard theme, then that is going to be what's going to get utilized in that dashboard. But you can always change it in the dashboard as to what theme you want to use. There's also a widget here for dashboard users logged on. So we can see that there's 2 users logged in. The one here, session 1, is actually an orphaned one from a previous shutting down of the dashboard. You can log off that user by selecting admin 1 and log off. That allows you to get rid of any orphaned users that are out there. Your licensing of the dashboard is going to be looking against what the number of users logged in are in this widget. You have here widget code templates, all of your different types of widgets. Now I should talk about some of these widget types, these bullets, funnels, pyramids, that type of stuff. Those are Fusion widgets that are not currently licensable through the MV dashboard. The programming is all there for them, but there's additional cost associated with that. And at this time, Zumasys is not licensing those. If we have the request from the user base that they need to have that functionality, we can add that to the dashboard. It won't be a big thing for us to do, but right now it's not available. In the user template over here on the side, we're saying what template. When we built our first widget, it brought in the code from this template as the code that would be used as default. So that's the widget that would allow you to define what are going to be your defaults. We also have here a widget that shows runtime errors. that are associated with the MVDB. The account that at least in a D3 environment, that the dashboard is installed in is the MVDB account. So it's looking to see any runtime errors associated with that account and shows them to you, and you can turn around and do a clear errors here. So if you're working with developing a new widget, and you can look there to see if there were any issues with your code. It also shows you here some of the special variables associated with the dashboard and what their current values are. So there's quite a bit in the administrator dashboard here, multiple tabs for it. If we go to the first page, this is an HTML document that's been custom designed for presentation purposes. We're going to come back to that later. Let's drill down now into the sales widget. You can see that we have a by year display, which gives us a columnar display of 3 years. We've only used a portion of the display here because if we had a full width, it wouldn't look very good with the 3 columns. So we've defined the widget to be a width of 2 as opposed to the maximum of 3. We have a drop-down list here to say whether we want to go by year or whether we want to do a columnar chart by month or a line chart by month. On the by year, we have the ability to drill down, and we're going to see the year-to-date sales by rep. And then if we were to drill down from there, we could see the by month sales for a particular rep. We can look at the subroutine associated with this widget and see components that were put in there. The entire widget would take care of display itself without having anything special for colors or display options or things like that. But we wanted to show some of those so it'll help in seeing what you can do to customize the default display. As we come into this subroutine, every subroutine gets called twice. The first time through is for it to pick up what are the characteristics of the widget. In this case, the title, the type, and the width are what are going to be picked up in that first call, passed back to the calling program. If we had looked at we are doing maintenance on widgets, it's going to go out and see for each one of the widgets what characteristics they have and be able to display that in the display of all widgets. The second time that it's called is when it's actually going to do the display of the widget, and that query mode at line 11 is going to be set to 1, and it's going to end up coming down through and doing the display. But first time through, it's only going to be picking up the title, type, and width. As I mentioned, our width we set to be 2 rather than the 3, which would give our full width. Down at 13 through 16, we've defined colors that we want to use for the columns and the line graph displays. We would be able to get our defaults to happen automatically, but we wanted to be able to customize the colors. And if we're just doing a single 2D column, not multi-series, all you're going to see is that maroon column. But if we went into multi-series, you're going to see the second column will be teal, the third column would be silver, and if we went to 4 columns wide, the fourth one would be blue. We also have the ability to get into display options. When we're going to be talking about amounts, we can define how many digits we want, what precision we want to be utilizing, formatting the number scale, those types of things. They happen automatically within the dashboard, but by defining them here in the chart options variable, we can customize to how we want things displayed. Line 23, we have, in this case, we're utilizing a stored data set that will allow us to do quick displays of the data. We're just going to read a record from the MVDB control file, and we'll pick up all of the data that's been previously calculated. You could be putting in here a calculation module where you go out and select from a file and pull together all your data. It's up to you as to how you want to do that. At Zumasys, we utilize this financial dashboard concept. We have a lot more on our initial display page than what we have on this demo company. To get all the data for that, we run as many as 100 reports in the background and accumulate the data. And that process could take as long as 10 minutes, depending upon the time of month, to come up with all the data. So we run that background process every half hour to 45 minutes. And on the dashboard, it'll show what the last calculation time was, so you can know how current the data is that you're seeing displayed. The widget supports a drop-down to choose the display type. The drop-down of by month and by year at line 28 is going to be looking at what was selected and decide whether it's going to be doing the annual or the monthly display. Different sections of this widget are going to be, or this subroutine are going to be run based upon what that drop-down had. So we've utilized one widget here to accomplish several displays. We didn't have to make a separate one for the by month and a separate one for the annual. We are also combining sales and gross profit into one widget, so we haven't had to create a separate widget and a separate subroutine for each. The values passed to the subroutine determine how this is going to end up running. So this same widget has been utilized 3 or 4 different places in the demo company dashboard. Every widget subroutine includes a line here for include WBPD MVDB include. What that is a named common that has the global variables that really drive the entire system. The primary data array is the widget user data. That would be local to each widget. When you go from one widget to the next, you're not going to be carrying the data from one to the next unless you pass it through the drill down variables. You also have global user data and global temporary data, which is going to be global to the entire login session. So that would be passed from one subroutine or one widget to the next. What we're going to do in the subroutine is talk about how you would pass data through a drill down. Here at lines 60 through 65, we're actually going to define a drill down. Now you remember we were in the year on the sales, and we could click on 1 year and it would show us the sales reps and what they'd had for that particular year. And we define what widget at line 62, we define what widget is going to be called if we do the drill down. We are putting into element 1 of the user widget data array the value of revenue or GP. So we're going to be saying, is this we're displaying revenue, sales, or are we displaying the gross profit? And then into attribute 2 of the array, or element 2 of the array, we're going to put the year. So if somebody clicks on the year, it's going to call the new widget and it's going to pass in elements 1 and 2 values that tell that widget how it's supposed to act. You can pass an endless number of elements utilizing these DD/UD position and DD/UD val variables. We also have the ability, sometimes when you're doing a display on a columnar chart, you may want to define your y-axis, what's going to be the maximum value that will be displayed, and the system will do it by default. But you may find that the way the data works out, you may want to skew that a little bit, make it a higher possible y-axis or a lower possible y-axis. And we've done an example of that here, where we've defined the max value of the y-axis. We also can see in this routine how prompts are handled within the system. We have the display by. Let's go back to the dashboard, and you can see the display by. So that's the prompt that's going to be displayed. We have types of select, which is a drop-down list. We have a type of text, We have a type of checkbox. We're going to do a select here, and we can define what's going to come up in the default. We're saying what this UD position is saying what element of the widget user data array is the result going to be put into. We're defining the options on the drop down. So we can have by year, we can have by month using column chart, we can have by month using line chart. And we're going to be saying that if they select one, then we're going to put the resulting value. We're going to use the same thing. We could have said that by year is going to be a value 1. By month using column chart is a value 2. So we could have the select values be different than what the options are that they have to choose from. And then we turn around and say what string is going to go into the button. You have to click on a button in order to execute the prompt. You can have multiple prompts in a widget. In this case, we have one, so everything is attribute 1 in these input variables. But then if we had a second option that they could choose from, that would be going into attribute 2. Again, you can have as many as you want. It automatically puts them vertically down the page. You can't say, okay, I want it to be over on the right hand side of the widget. It's always going to be just in a vertical row down the widget. And it's not going to do anything on those entries until you hit the button. That will then turn around and call the same subroutine again, but with the new values in those attributes. And then within the routine, you turn around and act on what the options were that were selected. When we start dealing with multi-series charts, we end up having another level of complexity in populating the values that are to be displayed and the drill down variables that are to be populated. Here we have 34 or 32 different columns that must be populated. January through August, we have 3, one for each year in each month, and then we only have 2013, 2014 in September through December because those months haven't happened yet. If we look at the code associated with this, when we were populating the values for the years, our bar values here, we have attribute 1, and we're going to have values 1, 2, and 3, one for each year. And in our drill downs, we're going to have the same. We're going to have an attribute 1, we're going to have a value 1, 2, or 3, and then our sub-value 1 and 2, and as many parameters as we want to be passing through the drill down widgets. But if we get into the multi-series, we end up populating the bar values. We have multiple attributes and we have multiple values. There's one attribute for each year, and there are 12 values for each month. So our 36, or really 32, that we're going to have to be populating into the values. And in the drill down widgets, we have the same concept, except that we have this variable MS value counter, which is incrementing by 1 through each one of the individual columns that are being displayed. So for the month of January, there are 3 columns. The month of February, there are 3 columns, and so on. So we end up having 32 different columns. And it's not as simple as just populating with the data associated with those columns, because if you look behind the scenes in the dashboard product, it's like it needs to have a 4th dimension below the sub-value level. So what we do is we populate a literal into the drill down value. We populate MS label if we're trying to put in there what would be the value of the associated bar X label variable. We would populate with MS series if we wanted to be able to put in what would be the associated value associated with the bar.labels value. And in the there's another one where we'd put in ms.value if we were trying to put in what had been put here into the ms or into the w bar values variable. For a better example of that, I recommend that you go to the demo ms column widget in all the widgets and run the example there, and you will see, looking at the code, it's very simple what's going on. You'll be able to see the use of these literals passes the parameter, and the resulting data that gets put into the drill down widget. There's a sample drill down widget that shows you what the value was that's passed in the drill down parameters, and that'll give you a better example of what is going on there. It's more complex, but it will allow you to do the drill downs on a multi-series. We're now going to look at another drill down here of the margin GPS percent and the associated routine that gets called, which is the sub sales chart. This is one widget that accomplishes 3 separate drill downs. It does our drill down on the margin GPS, it does our drill down on the parts dollars, and on the services dollars. And it accomplishes it by looking at the parameter that was passed from the calling dashboard. If the parameter passed was margin, then it's going to turn around and pull its data in from rec 39, attribute 39. If it was parts dollar, it's going to pull it in from 40, and it's going to also give the ability to do a drill down. And if it was services, it's going to be 42 and have the ability to drill down there. So what we've accomplished is one program, one widget. In fact, it's going to be doing amounts and percentages within this one widget. We've been able to use one widget to accomplish 3 separate drill downs. It saves you having to create a widget for each one. You can do it whichever way you want. If you want to create a whole bunch of widgets, or if you want to economize and have one with multiple purposes, you can do whatever you want. But this gives an example of how we had accomplished the one accomplishing 3 purposes. We're now going to go back to looking at the first page of the Demo Financial Company dashboard. This is actually a custom HTML page. It's not there's no tool within the dashboard product that will create a custom HTML page. This is just literally building all the HTML to give us this presentation that we desired on this dashboard. The HTML itself we've stored in a file called web.forms. In this case we call the record Demo Financials Dashboard, and it's just literal HTML. Now what we've done unique is any place that we want to put a variable, we put a placeholder in there utilizing this squiggly 1 squiggly, squiggly 2 squiggly, and so on. Throughout the HTML page there are these squigglies that are going to get replaced within the widget routine. It goes through and knows what to put into each one of those placeholders. If we were to, you can see here year-to-date 1, year-to-date 2, fiscal year 3. If we look at our dashboard, we'll see year-to-date we put in 2015, year-to-date we put in 2014, fiscal year we put in 2014. We also have in there the ability to do drill downs. And this is using standard HTML formats for a drill down. Where we're different is in our drill downs before, we would drill down with a widget name. And it would allow you to get at that widget. You didn't have to have a dashboard associated with that widget. You could get at it directly from within another widget. But in this case, we're actually referencing a dashboard name So you have to have created the dashboard in order to access it through a drill down in a HTML page. So in this case, we have a dashboard called Display Rev.gp Sales Chart. If you have multiple drill downs like this that are dashboards, you need to make sure that you have not allowed them to be accessed by users. If you leave the user blank in the dashboard, everybody will have access to it, and it'll show up as a tab across the top of their page. So these ones that we're creating and accessible through a HTML drill down, we put some dummy username into the dashboard so that everybody won't have it pop up as something that they can access. But if they have access to the dashboard page here, they can drill down even though they aren't shown as a user of the associated dashboard. And then within the drill downs, you can pass parameters. This UD pose 1, we're passing in the literal 1, and into the value we're passing in the word revenues, and you can have a UD pose 2 and a UD val 2, and as many as you need to pass parameters on into the next dashboard, which is in turn going to call its widget, which is going to in turn call its subroutine, and the subroutine is what is going to be reading and popping off those different values to tell it how it's supposed to operate. If we look at the subroutine behind a HTML widget, we can see that it has a type of HTML. We can see that we've read in, down here we've read in from the web forms the actual HTML document into a variable called HTML. Nothing unique about that variable name, it's just what we used. We went through and populated it with all of the variable data, and then we assigned it to a variable called $text.data. That's what an HTML document is looking to get the actual HTML page that's going to be displayed. So it's as simple as that to use a canned HTML document within a HTML widget subroutine. That's the conclusion of the demonstration of the widgets and dashboards associated with the demo financial company. What we haven't discussed is the testing of your programs. In the programmer's manual, it discusses how to go about doing your testing, because if you have a problem in your code, what's going to happen is the browser is just going to hang. There's no traps. It's just a presentation of data, so there's no traps in the user interface to tell you what's going on. There is a product called mvdb.debug, a tool that you'd run from the TCL level that has been created to test your programming before you attempt to run it through the dashboard. Look in the manual to see how to do that. You can pass it variables like you would pass in parameters, drill down or whatever, and it'll tell you whether the program completed properly. It will not give you a visual display in the browser. It's only going to give you results like you were doing it just at the TCL level. So this completes the tutorial on developing dashboards and widgets with the MV dashboard. The purpose of the examples provided with the dashboard are to give you an idea of what can be done with the product and how you can go about accomplishing the examples. Remember, a programmer can easily accomplish many impressive things with this product, but the real value comes when the business can visualize the widgets and drill downs to paint the desired picture of their company, financials, their performance, or whatever it is that they want to see, whatever matrix they want to see about how the company's doing. You can do with the dashboard if you have the vision of what you want to do.